All right, hello everybody. I can actually still hear the video from that promo. Let me actually try to stop that. Hold on 1 second. All right, so hi everyone. I am here with Sam Shankland to review the first round of the Magnus Carlsen Invitational. We had a pretty exciting finish in the match between Magnus Carlsen and Hikaru Nakamura. We'll talk a little bit about that. Sam, how's it going today?
It's good. How are you?
I'm doing all right, thank you. There's something a little off with my background here. I'll figure that out later. I know that I'm showing very clearly, but then my background's a little bit blurry for whatever reason. But so what did you think? What did you think of the first day of the tournament, Sam?
Oh, it was interesting. I mean, it didn't go wildly differently than I would have expected. I mean, I know that I filled out the fantasy bracket and saw that there were various absolutely absurd numbers, like suggesting that Firouzja was a 3-1 favorite over Ding or anything. I mean, for me, like when you have a small number of games and they're very fast, except for games that Magnus is involved in, I don't think I would give any player in this field more than like a 60-40 edge over anyone else. It's going to be tightly contested. It's not surprising to me that that it was very close matches.
Yeah, I think it's hard because the problem is that we were actually going through what people picked in fantasy chess, and it looked kind of like the odds were done fairly. But I'm with you that it's hard. It's hard for someone to really be like a 4-1 favorite in any match. I mean, you even see like today's match between Magnus and a lot of people. I mean, the odds for Magnus to win the tournament are like incredibly high if you look at either like the betting sites or fantasy chess. Well, and so I understand winning the tournament is a bit of a different thing, but it is sort of hard to believe that the odds are that much in one player's favor.
I mean, the more games you play, the more the better player is going to prevail. I also think that the difference between Magnus and whoever number 2 is in this field, I don't know who that would even be, it's so close, is going to be probably bigger than the difference between number 2 and number 10 in terms of their overall capability. But at the same, or number 8, I guess there isn't 10 players. But at the same time, while I believe Magnus is a very big favorite to win the tournament overall, I don't think he's necessarily that big a favorite in any given match. It's just, when you play enough matches, it will add up.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Anything strike you about the play itself today? Like, you thought somebody played better than you thought, or had a better match than you would have thought, or
I always first pay attention to Magnus, and he played very differently than I would have thought. I certainly wouldn't have expected him to play this somewhat, well, at least in my opinion, suspicious line of Sicilian. I mean, maybe I just haven't reviewed it enough recently, and you can make it work, but I always thought this line was a bit suspicious that he was playing, but he took some unusual decisions. Like if there was one in particular that I would point out, it was in round 4. So this was a game where he needed to draw with black, right, against Nakamura.
Yeah.
To win the match.
Yep.
There was one decision that was absolutely baffling to me.
And you know what? Maybe what I'm going to do is I'm going to put that game up on the screen, and we'll kind of review them maybe one by one later, but I'll put it up just so people see what you're talking about. So you're talking about game four of the match, right? Like, so Magnus, just to set the stage, Magnus was leading 2-1, right? And he had won both games with white, and so he had to try to hold a draw to win the match outright, right?
Yeah, so first of all, I was a little surprised that he stuck with this, somewhat shady Sicilian. Like, for example, by contrast, Ding...
You're calling the Scheveningen a shady Sicilian, right?
Well, with this specific move order, yes. The structure is not necessarily so bad at all, but it's more that this move order allows G4 on the 6th move, as well as a lot of other things. It just felt like this was... Modern theory doesn't really appreciate this very much. And while in rapid chess you can get away with just about anything, I mean, Hikaru has been known for his bomb clouds every now and then, for God's sake. It's not like you're just going to lose without a fight, even if you get like a pleasant position from the opening. But I thought that if you compare this to like Ding Liren, for example, who clearly he prepared the Najdorf. I refuse to believe he just woke up one day, decided, I'm going to go play the Najdorf against Firouzja with no preparation. I'm sure he was ready. But even he pivoted when he only needed to draw with black in the last game. So first of all, I was surprised by the opening choice. But the big move that really jumped out at me was Rook E8 on move 14.
Okay, so let's go through this. And yeah, I mean, it's interesting. It's what you're saying about the Scheveningen kind of being thought to be dubious because of obviously the G4 Karas attack is pretty difficult for black. But I guess in rapid, it's like if you're surprised by the Scheveningen, it's hard to go for the sharpest lines that you haven't had time to review. And so that's kind of the gamble that you make, I guess, as black when you play this in rapid, is that, you know, I feel like there's certain players who are so consistent with their opening that they probably would play G4, and then, you know, someone like Hikaru kind of plays a bunch of different stuff.
But that's also not the only good line. Like, I think if white plays the English attack with like bishop e3, f3, queen d2, I mean, this bishop e7 move is a little out of place.
Yeah. Now, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I remember I actually played this f4, queen f3 line when I was something like 12 years old. But I remember thinking that it's not that good because of this e5 move, and I don't know that's really changed since then. Like, I think it's just considered to be an okay line for black.
That's my understanding as well. To be honest, I've never played this opening for either color, so
that's fine. That is totally fine.
Study it. But
sorry,
I would point out is that this move on move 14. This was what really jumped out at me, where Magnus played rook e8. This was very surprising to me.
So I have the position on the board now. So after bishop b3. He played rook e8. Yeah, so
apparently, like, the computer claims that the best move is knight e5.
Yeah.
And it's not scared of bishop e5, bishop e5, bishop f7 because it probably sees some tactics. I don't particularly care what they are. For me, like, queen e7, it's, according to the machine, it's the fourth best move. But for a human, like, you make this move and you hit the clock. You overprotect the pawn. You prepare for knight e5. Very easy, very pleasant advantage. Is it the best? I mean, objectively, clearly it's not, but it just feels so simple and straightforward and, like, completely risk-free. You go knight e5, bishop e6 next, and, like, black is just better. I mean, he's not crushing, but he's clearly better.
Yeah, he's rock solid here, right? I mean, there's no weaknesses.
It's very surprising to me that Magnus wouldn't go for this.
Well, I think one of the things that I was surprised by in this match is that Magnus was playing really, really fast, even for somewhat, like, difficult decisions. I mean, I could see playing rook e8 slowly and queen e7 fast, because queen e7 is sort of like a solid, you know, rock solid move. You don't really need to calculate too much. You see you get your knight on e5 on next move, and so, but to spend a lot of time to spend no time and play rook e8 seems a little more difficult.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not the best blitz player out there. Everybody knows that. But for me, this was very strange. I would have played queen e7 in like half a second, which again isn't even the best move, but it's, you know, clearly it's.
And so I guess we're starting from the last game, which is okay, and then we'll kind of work our way back up. But I guess quickly.
That was one of the most notable to me for sure.
Yeah, there was a couple of other moments that kind of struck me. I mean, the first game we can go through kind of quickly because I don't have too much to say about this. This was a variation that I think both sides have played multiple games in. And so I'm just kind of going through the opening quickly here. After move 11, bishop d3, bishop b7. In the next game with black, the third round.
Extremely unusual. I mean, normally in these lines, white lets black go knight h5 and take his bishop, but and I guess he's scared of falling too far behind in development. But h3, I mean, strategically speaking, this is an extremely ambitious move. Like, it's, you know, I'm going to secure my whole queenside space advantage and not let you trade any pieces. I mean, that's very, very ambitious strategically, but it falls behind on developments. I think Hikaru got this dead wrong with the move h6. I mean, you have to try to punish white for this one way or another.
Yeah, and so it seems that he played h6 in both games, right? Did he? I think in the third game, yeah, he also played h6. They played it was the same until h6. I just double checked. The only difference is on move 11. So a move after h6, he played bishop a6. I think in the second one. Yeah, in the second one he played bishop a6. This is the second game I'm showing the board now. So he improved. Of course, like, given the structure here, he didn't have much time from one game to the next. So h6 maybe is a move to look at as a potentially too slow. I don't really know what is the
checked in any real detail, but it certainly feels wrong to me.
Yeah. But in the first game with bishop b7, he kind of gets into the problem that you discussed. Like, black, white has the space advantage, and then he doesn't get either bishop, so he doesn't have the bishop pair, and so he just kind of got ground down, and that was so sort of a typical Magnus game where he just got a slightly better position. You made this interesting move e4 on move 24 that kind of converted the position, opened it up, and black has the weakness on c6. And I don't know if he would have played e4 in a slow game, but it's just a really difficult position to play for black, and Hikaru kind of crumbled in this game.
I also don't know if I would agree with you that he was slightly better. I think he was actually much better.
Okay, you may be right. I may be just oversimplifying the nature of the position because of the reduced material, but you could be right. It's just really hard. So I'll defer to you on that evaluation. But yeah, so that one looked like a convincing start for Magnus, and then you kind of expected him maybe to just roll over Hikaru in this match, but then in game two things kind of looked well. Game two was interesting. From the theoretical standpoint, this is a variation, right? The bishop c5.
Let me just pull up the game. For what it's worth, under no circumstances do I ever expect anybody to roll over Hikaru without a fight. But,
yeah, it's true that he's an incredible fighter, and he doesn't give up.
A lot. He's had a really rough year and change, but I mean the guy is so strong. Like I mean, he may have fallen a bit. I don't know, but like he's clearly so strong. I mean, he can be beaten, of course. Like ratings don't lie. Magnus is a better player, maybe even a much better player. But I never expect Hikaru to get rolled over, basically. So,
by the way, someone in the chat is asking a question. Why didn't they wait? Why didn't Magnus and Hikaru wait for the result of the Ali Reza match to play the last game? And so that's a good question. There's a couple of things at play here. I mean, of course, this is the first time that we've held this kind of super tournament online, and so we're kind of trying to both make the players happy, make some of these matches are displayed on television live as they go, and so we're trying to kind of weigh the desires of the players, the desires of the TV stations that are showing this. So, for example, I think everything is being shown live on Norwegian television, and they wanted the games to kind of have like a certain interval between them, I think. But to keep kind of showing Magnus as he plays, and they didn't want an hour break, because what do they do during that hour? So it's sort of tricky when you try to look at chess and make it as exciting as possible for the viewers, make everybody happy. Of course, in live tournaments, it's typical that you wait for the round to be over to go ahead with the other stuff. On the other hand, from the perspective of the players, I think they're actually happy to not have to wait and then waste time watching the Ding Liren game and just kind of lose their energy. So, but on the other hand, maybe they'd like to prepare. So I don't know, but I think that's why it was done this way. Who knows? If we do this 10 times, maybe we'll change the rules a little bit as we go along. But we were, we're trying to kind of balance all the stakeholders here and try to do as well as we can. So anyway, so they start with this bishop c5 line. And I think, Sam, maybe you know more than I do about this line. I'm not too familiar, but this knight takes e5 is sort of an old, really sharp line that maybe is played a little less often today.
It's actually quite a good variation. And it was one that I remember in the days where I was actually playing the Archangel, or I guess, what do you call it, the Muller proper. This line actually bothered me a bit, and it wasn't so easy.
I mean, it certainly feels it's very principled for white, right? I mean, it's like you're going for
you take the whole center and you get this bishop pair, and the question is, can black shut you down with c5, c4, and maroon your bishop on a2 and make it stupid? And Magnus was clearly prepared. He got a fine position, but it's so it's definitely a dangerous line. I don't think it should be underestimated.
Yeah, so I think it was interesting. I mean, I looked at this a little bit both live and afterwards. I didn't really compare it with old games or anything like that, so I was just analyzing from what I saw. On move 18 here, the computer, this is hard, I think, for a human, but the computer liked queen g4 a lot more than queen h3. It's a little bit more direct. Obviously, if you get f5, f6, you might, or f5, bishop h6, you might threaten mate. But he played queen h3, which is very natural also, and this is one of those things where I think in a game of this time control, you just kind of make a decision.
I don't know. I mean, for example, it's possible that after queen g4, he was worried about bishop c8 back when he can't play f5 so easily because of f5.
That's true. You're showing here that maybe on queen g4, bishop c8, he doesn't have a as
I mean,
easily.
I don't know. I mean, look, if the computer says Queen G4 is best, it almost certainly was.
No, of course, yeah.
You can understand why Hikaru might not have
Yeah,
gone
for
for it.
sure. But it gets to an interesting position. Plays knight c3, which by no means was forced, but we don't have we don't want to do so many games to go through.
Yeah,
It's
well, I
um,
mean, that was the burn the bridges move. I mean, your position is then strategically hopeless. Like, you're
right.
punished, so Bishop D5 is coming. Like, it's strategically a very poor position. But White does have mating chances. I mean, he got rid of this knight on E4 that was sort of a key defensive piece. He's ready to crash through with F5 next move, and now that the knight is gone, F6 will come. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I think that, especially given the time control, this was a fantastic decision that Hikaru made.
Yeah, I agree, and the rest of the game kind of shows. And it's of course it's easy when you're watching with a computer evaluation to find defenses for black, but in a practical game of this time control, it's really hard for black to play. And so he played bishop takes a2, rook takes a2, pawn takes e5, and all that is looks like it's correct. Then after f6 is when I think he messed up, but it was a little surprising again how quickly he played. But it looks like either knight d5 or knight g6 were possible moves, and the best one is actually knight d5. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
What must have happened is Magnus must have looked at this position, realized that after f takes g7, he can't take the pawn back, and then thought, I cannot possibly tolerate a pawn on g7 like that. But I guess he could.
Yeah, I mean it's funny because it seems like the position is safer, and this happens in some positions sometimes, that it's your king is safer when there's an enemy pawn because they really can't force it to go anywhere. So
another thing is just time. Like, for example, after knight d5, fg7, and rook e8, as the computer is recommending. If you compare that to how the game went, where White invaded on the 6th rank immediately. If you go to that position, then rook e6, rook g6 comes pretty fast, and then I think that improves black's defensive chances.
Yeah, it's true. So he played g takes f6, bishop h6, rook e8, rook a6, which rook a6 was a really strong move. It's possible that Magnus missed it, but then he responded.
My guess is what he missed was h4.
Yeah, it's possible. And then here, I think he must have missed that after f5, h5, f4. I think he must have missed h takes g6, because I think if you looked at his face when it happened, he looked a little surprised. I mean, not when it actually happened, but I think there was a moment of surprise for him. And
well, I mean, it's hard to point out exactly what Magnus missed. I mean, he may have just made gf6 under sort of general principles, and I mean, Hikaru had to play a bunch of perfect moves in a row.
Yeah, he played Hikaru. Yeah, to give him credit, he played very precisely.
And then h4, and then I mean, it seemed like Hikaru played like 10 perfect moves in a row in a very sharp position without much time. I mean, it's pretty easy to get a bad position when your opponent does that.
Yeah, and I'll just walk you through the end of the game here. It's one of these rare instances that it was checkmate on the board, and that was one of the fantasy chess questions, and I happened to get that one right. I just thought that there would be a game at some point in the 7 rounds where someone would let the other player checkmate them, but it happened in the first round, so that was funny. But the position was just lost anyway, so it's not like there was any doubt about who would win, or that the mate was surprising. I'm sure obviously he saw it. He just decided to be a gentleman and let White checkmate him.
No, that's not why it was made. Magnus just wanted to win the fantasy bracket.
It's possible. So I don't know if he entered some sort of incognito account trying to win the amazing prizes that we have.
Knowing Magnus, I'm quite sure he did.
So then quickly, the next game where Hikaru was black, they have the same position as they did in the first game with that. Where he played bishop a6 instead of bishop b7. And Hikaru's position, I mean, again, I didn't love his opening position, but he did manage to basically equalize. And then
when did he equalize?
What's that?
It looked like he was worse in the early middle game for sure. I mean, not as
I mean, he was worse. I think here he's actually still worse. But at some point, this night endgame became just a draw, I think.
Well, one thing I always say is, I mean, you're not my student or anything, but one thing I always tell my students is I don't like it when they use the word just, which I often think is a way to try to kill debate or discussion and oversimplify an incredibly complicated game and just in a way that's not helpful. Like just a draw, it may have been a draw. It certainly wasn't just a draw.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I don't want to be the language police, but it's that word always annoys me in the context of chess. I mean, until someone has resigned or the game has ended, it's very rare that you've actually seen everything to it and that's just it. And the other time that people sometimes use the word just is with unambitious thought. You have a promising attack and you can go for the king and it's very complicated, but I just want to get an isolated pawn or like do something much simpler and less ambitious. I don't like that word essentially.
Yeah. No, and it's true that again, it's easy to fall prey to the computer evaluation and not be too keenly aware of the difficulties of playing the position. And I think things went wrong. Things definitely went wrong here when he played. There was one move in particular that was just a blunder. But again, here he's still, I think, under some pressure. And so King D8. What's that?
You say King D8 on move.
King D8 on move 45 was a blunder. It's hard to even kind of see that it's a blunder, but it gives.
So obviously, Knight A B8 is holding a draw because the computer says 0-0-0. I mean, this is
no. Of course, it's not. It's not trivial at all because it's Knight A B8 looks like a move that has no purpose, right? I mean, so I
think the point is what Black needs to do is play Knight A B8 and King D6 on the next two moves. It doesn't particularly matter the move order, so that he's able to meet B5 with C takes B5 and King C6. So it's extremely direct enforcement.
Yeah.
The sequence you lose. I mean.
It's not trivial at all. And of course there was probably a lot more we could look at in this endgame, but here, B5 is was a pretty instructive move, and it just looks like black is
where if Black's king were on D6, you could take on B5 and get King C6 in.
Yeah, exactly. So now he doesn't have time because if pawn takes B5, King B4. Whoops.
Yeah, once Black's king gets in like this, it's
with the weakness on F6 and the weakness on D5 is just too much. So that was that game. And then, I guess we have to talk. Well, we didn't when we were looking at the Scheveningen game that Magnus lost. Game 4, I should say, because there were two Scheveningens, even 3. After Rook E8, you had suggested the rock solid Queen E7. They went through. There was a sequence here that was a sort of a tactical sequence, and it seemed like Magnus maybe played a little bit too fast or just missed something. I mean, after Bishop E5, Bishop E5, Bishop F7, King H8.
I think he'd probably miss Bishop E8. I can't imagine Magnus giving up the F7 pawn unless he missed Bishop E8. Like if he plays Rook takes C5, I mean, he's a little uncoordinated, but his position is so fantastic that.
It's definitely it's possible. The funny thing is here he was still okay if he played Bishop F1 first,
right? But
which and it's actually he's down a pawn, but I guess it's not terrible. But he definitely still has chances here.
Bishop is much better than the knight.
What's that?
His bishop will end up much better than the knight.
Yeah, exactly. So the bishop is better than the knight, and so he's got play for a pawn. I mean, maybe it's even reasonable for Black. But he played Queen B6 first, and now after Queen F2, he's got a problem. So now if you play Bishop F1, there's Queen takes B6.
And Bishop B6 in between.
Yeah, and the problem is that now he can't. So if he attacks the bishop, Rook F1, and then he can't cover F8 and take the bishop. So
not to mention that it takes another pawn.
Yeah. So this was a rare sort of really kind of important tactical blunder from Magnus, I guess.
I suppose, but
in these time controls,
for me, like it seemed like it was a messy position, and he
yeah.
I was much more surprised by this move, Rook E8 on move 14.
Yeah, no, I hear you.
Because that one, I mean, and even the best player in the world can mess up a difficult decision, but it felt like there he messed up an easy decision, and that was much more surprising.
And then
even if it was less painful in terms of how bad the move was.
Yep. In the Armageddon game, So they repeated, and of course, so we'll talk a little bit at the end about the sort of controversy that happened, and I'll explain it for our viewers so that they understand what was going on there. But it started with the Scheveningen again. This time Hikaru played bishop e2, so he didn't go for the f4, queen f3 again experiment. But I think people in the chat were saying like the move order, and frankly, I don't really remember all the nuances of this line, but that he got not people in the chat, I should say. It's actually like Anish Giri and Peter Svidler were saying that he got a position down a couple of tempos from another variation. Honestly,
they're exactly right. Basically, if you take the classical Scheveningen, I mean, if you were to, let's say, instead of, let's say, I mean, the move that really messed Hikaru up, I believe, was knight b3 and the knight.
Yeah.
If you can imagine him castling, and then Magnus going a6, and then white going a4, we've got like the standard starting position of all the Scheveningans we saw in the Kasparov-Karpov match.
With like queen e1, queen g3, and all that stuff.
No, usually they will go king h1 and bishop f3, and then g4, actually.
Okay.
You could do the queen e1, queen g3 plan, but if you do that, you shouldn't play a4.
That's without a4, yeah, sure.
If you can imagine on move 9, let's say what Hikaru had castled, which I also don't think is the best move. I think white should be trying to castle long in these structures, but if that's the case, he probably shouldn't have played f4 and bishop e2. But okay, so say white had castled on move 9, and then black plays a6, a4, and then I guess it's queen c7 there. That would be like the starting position of all these standard Kasparov-Karpov Scheveningans, and the whole point was white is going, it's hard for black to develop the c8 bishop, because if he ever plays b6, he's going to run into knight takes c6 followed by e5. And that's going to give him a disaster on the long diagonal with bishop f3 coming next. So given that that's the case, the only way for this bishop to develop is then to go bishop d7. And once black goes bishop d7, then and only then white plays knight b3 to avoid the exchange of knights, which means that g4, g5 can come. If white plays g4, g5 without avoiding the knight exchange, then after knight takes d4, bishop takes d4, and e5, black is good. But so basically, white wants to play knight b3 to avoid the knight exchange and then start throwing g4, g5. And that's approximately what Hikaru did in the game. The problem is, since he didn't wait for black to play bishop d7, black just went b6, bishop b7 right away. Normally what black will have to do is play bishop d7 because eventually he runs out of waiting moves. At that moment, white goes knight b3, threatening a5, black will play b6, and then after g4, the only way for this knight to escape is for black to play bishop d7 back to c8. So basically what happened was, as Anish and them were saying, black got a normal Scheveningen where he went bishop c8 to b7 instead of bishop c8 to d7 to c8 to b7, and that is two very critical tempi one. This is somewhat complicated move order stuff, but it's important to understand.
Yeah, that was a really good explanation. I feel like you could spend 30 minutes explaining it to, but I got it, and that was more. There was definitely more than I think. I've known this at some point in my life, and now I definitely could not have explained it. So that was helpful, even for me. So thank you. Sam, by the way, as we'll talk about a lot more tomorrow, but Sam has a great opening course that is going to be featured on Chess24. It's going to be the deal of the day tomorrow, but it's on the Semislav, and I've started to go through it. I think it's amazing, and as you can see, he explains things very clearly, and he does that in that course as well. Of course, maybe next he should do one on the Scheveningen, but the
next one's actually going to be an add-on to the Semislav, because the Semislav started after 1d4, but it's possible for white to. I actually just finished it today, but it's possible for white to play like knight f3 or c4, and then I didn't bother with e4 because that's just a different animal. But if white plays knight f3 or c4 on the first move and still has the possibility of transposing to d4 next, that somewhat limits your options. And so
that makes
next course
makes sense.
It's like black versus knight f3, d4 and stuff.
Yeah, sort of a tag along that fits within the Moran.
I was very happy with this Semislav course, though. I did a lot of good work on it, and I spilled some novelties that, I'm sort of counting on my opponents being cheap bastards and not being willing to buy the course, because I'm going to play it at some point. I mean, it'd be pretty foolish of me to just play the Semislav and copy my own recommendation that's publicly available. Every game from now on. But I will play this at some point, perhaps against someone who I believe is too cheap to buy my course. But it's been good, and I mean, hey, Greg Shahade beat some IM in 25 moves in a blitz game afterwards. And if Greg Shahade can beat an IM with this, it's really, really good, because that stuff does not happen.
I hope he's listening. I hope he's listening.
Yeah.
We'll see. All right. So going back to this game, so they played b6. I mean, basically the scenario unfolds as you described. He plays g4.
Hang on, just 1 second though, because we got Shock Pirate CH is asking, is Black here aiming for a hedgehog? And I'll point out that while Black's setup is somewhat hedgehog-like, it's a bit different because White hasn't played c4, which I think you sort of need in order to call a position a hedgehog.
Yeah. So these are I guess if it's the Maroczy structure with c4 and e4 would make it like that. Yeah, and so here things go wrong for Hikaru. Basically, after e5, he doesn't have a good counter.
Yeah, I mean, he's basically lost. Like, I mean, this position here, White really needs to keep the position closed. Like, he's weakened his king, and that doesn't particularly matter if the position is closed. But he needs to be able to launch a kingside attack and play moves like Bishop G2 and H4 and eventually F5. I mean, I don't think it's going to work very well, but like if he could get that in, it would maybe have some utility to it. But as is, like, once Black gets E5 in at a point where White cannot respond with F5, I mean, this structure is so bad for White. Like,
at least to be more solid, once, if E5 happens, you'd at least want to put your pawn back on G2 because it's like there's really no hopes for an attack.
Even then, I like Black in those positions. I would much rather play Black, but with the pawn on G5, I mean, this is just miserable for White. Yeah.
So he tried his best to fight, but it was a really bad position, and things kind of get worse. Now, apparently, what happened. So this is my understanding, and if I'm incorrect about all this, this is not a legal conversation. I'm just telling things as I think they happened. There was a clock issue on the broadcast, and this is because the players are playing, and then the game gets translated into our broadcast, and it was some kind of programming glitch because we haven't done Armageddon games on our site before, so there was some kind of programming involved, and on the broadcast clock, the clocks look wrong. Like White started with 4 minutes and Black with 5, which is the opposite. In Armageddon, Black has draw odds, but White starts with more time. So the way our clock was displayed, it was showing it the other way. And so at some point, the arbiter or something happened where and you see Hikaru on the stream kind of start talking / moving / not exactly clear, and you could think it's because his position is completely lost, which it is. And he talked about it on his stream after, I think. But someone did speak to Hikaru during the game here. I think it happened actually at this point after Queen G5 check, move 24. And if you replayed the stream, you could see it. He gets a little bit agitated, and it's because somebody was talking to him, and
that does sound agitating, but rest assured, there's no amount of shutting up that would have saved Hikaru's position.
No, yeah, and I think that's why, like, if it had happened in a really critical position, this would have been sort of a big situation, but because the position was so bad, and I think the time on the clock, like Magnus had tons of time, it wasn't really like, that's why I think he wasn't too upset, because of course, if he had been disturbed in a position where he had a chance, and the clocks were correct, like it's not like he started with a minute less than he was supposed to, that it started correctly, it's just it was broadcast differently, and I guess the arbiter was seeing it not from Hikaru's view, but from the view that he could have, and he saw the clocks as wrong, so he was like, oh wait, like the clocks are wrong, and so something that's my.
You hate for something like this to happen, for sure, and it shouldn't have happened, and to some extent you could say Hikaru got screwed by it, but I mean, if it's going to happen, it might as well happen at a point where I think the odds that this would have changed the results are completely zero. I mean, there's no way.
The thing is, I think there's no, there's basically no, it's very difficult for White to do anything but draw at the most, and that's why, like, King F1 is a bad move, I guess, but like there's no like King H2, for example. I think there's either queen, the queen can go to the H file and basically force the king back, so it's almost impossible not to at least have a perpetual for Black. Of course, Black probably just wins. So
I'd put the odds of Magnus not winning this. I mean, first, forget not winning. The odds of Magnus losing this game with Black, it just won't happen. I mean,
So that being said, I think that's the explanation for what happened. And yeah, I mean, it's, someone in the chat is saying anything can happen. Black could blunder. I mean, it's true. It's true. Although, in this position, I think it's unlikely. But again, this was an unfortunate event. I mean, this is something new for everybody. I think obviously there's some programming fix going on so that the clocks will show correctly next time on the broadcast, and there won't be any more confusion. But anyway, that is what happened in that game. So I guess now we should go through the Ali Reza.
One match. We had another one too. So the Firouzja
exactly.
match was also very interesting, of course.
Yeah. So I guess I'll start with the first game. The first game was actually not the most exciting, so we'll go a little quicker. It was a more quiet game, but actually it looked like a great start for Ali Reza because he managed.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like he got a slightly more pleasant position at some point, but realistically, go beating Liren from that, it is not going to happen. I mean, but to be like slightly better with Black and sort of, it seemed like he was dictating the course of the match up to that point, but it really turned south after that.
Yeah, the funny thing is, I think this position that he got here, with the opposite colored bishop, he's maybe nominally better. Not really. I mean, it's just a draw. Or I said it again. It's holdable for white. I said the word just again.
I'll forgive you. I mean,
I got to get it out of my vocabulary.
If White's F pawn were back on F2, maybe there would have been a chance for Black to throw some kind of kingside assault. But with all the blockade like this, I think there's really nothing to be done.
Yeah, but this is sort of the best that Ali Reza got in this match. Really, was this game, because the rest he well, actually that's not true. In the last game he had some chances, but the second game. The second game was interesting. First of all, because of the opening choice, Ding Liren played the Najdorf, which I know a lot of people were surprised. It's not his.
Yeah, I'm surprised that he doesn't do it more. Honestly, I mean, maybe he's basically given up the Sicilian completely, as far as I can tell. Or at least he hasn't played it in classical in a very long time. But he was really good at it. And then, I guess his Marshall was always believing in this E4, E5, and he plays it well. And I played him in Anze, and I tried to hit his repertoire, and he deviated at one moment in a way I didn't know, and I got completely crushed, with white, and I just lost like a child. But at some point, when you're that predictable and you're doing the same thing over and over, I mean, in the candidates, his Marshall looked extremely vulnerable. I don't even know if that's what provoked this, but I would like to see him play more Niders. I mean, I think he can play the Sicilian, and I mean, I don't know why he doesn't do it more.
Yeah, it's a fair point, because I do think, I mean, the guys that are super predictable, there's a few of them. I mean, MVL is.
I mean, I was also very surprised at the way Firouzja, the line Firouzja chose with white here, to castle long and then play H3, allowing Black to play H4. This felt like he was just begging to be worse. I mean,
yeah, I think. Yeah, I don't know if he didn't want to show any real prep in a quicker game, but this tournament has a lot of money, so it's.
I think Firouzja will show prep in a 1 minute game online. I mean, he's scared of that part. But
yeah, no, I understand.
But I mean, Ding completely crushed him. This was, I mean, it felt like the way white played it's just begging to be worse. After H4 and Black castles, you will never mate him on the H file. After F5, I mean, I was actually very surprised by bishop takes B3. It's not a bad move, but if Black sticks this bishop on C4 and then goes Queen C7, Rook B8, Rook FC8, H5, it's going to take you a million years to get something going on the king side. If you play bishop G5, I'm just going to let you take H4. I don't care. But so bishop C4, Queen C7, Rook B8, the other Rook to C8, A5. I think that white will get mated. I mean, not super fast, but pretty reliably. And,
yeah. So this is the plan, and this pawn on H4 is you're saying is really making the attack much slower for white.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's a fair point. So he played bishop B3 and knight C5, which was also not bad. Bishop takes and pawn takes. So he played it kind of very solidly.
Yeah, I didn't love that decision, but he made it work.
Yeah, so I guess the key moment after that was well, maybe there were several key moments, but here he played rook d4, h5. Now, all of this, I think, maybe not all of it was perfect from either side, but he plays knight takes e4, and here I was actually surprised because this seems it seems like an Ali Reza kind of position where he can actually play king a1, and the position is actually quite tricky. I mean, it's not.
King a1 is such a tough move. I mean, go tell I don't want to disrespect Firouzja. Obviously he's a fantastic chess player, but I mean, go tell anybody to play some sharp knight or perfectly with 45 seconds on the clock.
Oh no, of course it's really difficult. That's why these games, you kind of look at the plans generally, and the goal is not to refute everything. But this was a funny position where now it's actually quite hard for white to play. I mean, the threat is rook takes d4 and taking the piece. There's some bishop f3 tricks. And it's pretty tricky. So he played bishop f3 right away, and I don't know if he probably underestimated. Again, it's the clock situation, right? But Ding Liren played e4, and now this position
from Ding.
What's that?
Yeah. That was a very good decision by Ding to play e4.
Yeah, and now it looks like no, it was just in practice. It's very difficult to play this position. I mean, looks like lost.
I don't care what the computer says.
No, me neither. I mean, I think this is
with your flag falling, you are not holding this with white
by
any stretch. Firouzja went down in 3 moves, and for guys with playing with literally 0 time in their clock, basically 30-second chess, he's probably the best player in the world. Maybe Hikaru, but I mean, he went down so fast. It's not. There's no way.
Yeah, just the open king and the. Yeah, I mean, it's just a tough position. So, yeah, he, like you said, he went down in just a few moves here. Yeah, bishop takes a3 was nice. Maybe he missed that with the flag hanging.
I'd be shocked if that was the only winning move as well.
Yeah, no, probably not. So he went down here pretty quickly. Ding Liren chose to trade queens here, which is a very good practical decision to just shake hands and end the game. It doesn't matter if the computer says there's some sort of force mate. So, of course, practical decision. So then he was in control. But in game 3, things looked like even more in control. This was maybe a smart opening choice by Ding Liren. He avoided the immediate complications and just got... So this, I don't know if you... Is this theory, by the way, this knight d7, knight b6? Have you ever seen this kind of...
Very fresh new stuff, but I checked it a little bit. I didn't think much of it for more or less exactly this reason that Ding showed. I mean, it's basically knight d7, knight b6 spends 2 tempi putting a knight on a not so great square. The only reason that you would ever justify this is if you believe you can stop white from playing c4, and Ding went ahead and played c4 anyway and made it look very convincing.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like he gets the pawn back in any case, and gets it looks like a good Catalan basically, or something like that, maybe one of these Slav. Yeah. So in this particular case, he doesn't even really bother trying to get the pawn back, but he just.
Actually, I think this was my favorite Firouzja game of this match. He got completely lost position, straight from the opening, moves in against the second best player in the world, and then he fought his way back to a draw by making practical decisions. I do think this was Firouzja's best game of the match. Would he have lost if Ding had played better at critical moments? Yes, obviously he would have. But you have to, when you get a completely lost position this early, you have to somehow make some kind of a mess. And I guess at some point the computer says, oh, white wins with, I guess he had queen c1 and queen h6 and white will give mate first. But, you're forcing him to let the pawns through and make difficult decisions. I mean, I think Firouzja actually defended extremely well this game. He made all the right decisions.
Yeah, it's I agree. I mean, it was really resourceful play, from a position that was here. This position, even to look at it is hard. It looks like so bad for black. But it was pretty amazing how he started to play when he was down the queen. So here again, there's a lot of different ways for both sides. Well, especially for white to try to get pieces. But he went for the one that seemed to be the most principled. He just wins the queen, and seems to get even a piece back so that it would only be queen against rook, not queen against rook and piece. But here, Firouzja starts mixing things up, and like you said, it was very, very kind of creative. It's possible that he could have taken an f7 instead of h7. Arguably, the
I was
king.
actually a bit surprised that Ding played h takes g6. I thought he should keep his knight alive.
Yeah, that was interesting. It's true. Yeah, maybe like I guess the knight has some squares. I don't know where, like e3 or maybe
Sure.
knight e3.
Knight e3 is fine.
Knight
I
e3 or
guess he was
c4.
concerned about c4 and his rook
Yeah.
will run out of squares. Maybe it's not so easy.
I mean, I guess the a3 square is a little hard to play,
Yeah,
but c4
I
again.
actually quite like knight b2, come to think of it. If black plays bishop h5 after queen h5, knight b2, rook f3, he's definitely going to get mated. And if he plays knight takes b2, queen takes b2, bishop takes h5, and then I go a3, and then I take on b5 and c5, I mean, this is...
Yeah, it's probably pretty bad.
Extremely convincing.
Yeah. 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 So, I mean, of course, Ding probably had some ways to simplify the position, to his advantage. But here Firouzja starts just playing very resourcefully. Like this move, c takes d4, is probably
absolutely the best choice.
Like, yeah, it's like objectively maybe it's losing just like all the other moves are losing, but practically it was really good. And after
Ding walk a thinner tightrope to maintain a winning position, and that's all you can ask him to do at this point. And he complicated the game enough that the second best player in the world couldn't win it. I mean, that's
Yeah, I mean it's it's easier to just go through the moves than really give too much commentary. But this position is actually quite unpleasant for white, like despite being up material.
Yeah, no, this is true. So should we move on to the next game?
Yeah, I'll show the final position because it's just really funny. Like this pawn, this pawn phalanx or whatever you want to call it, is obviously now very strong, and so white kind of has to make it perpetual because even if they win a rook, then there's a lot of pawns to stop. So the game ended in a draw here. Of course, you don't want to lose the rook with check and then the d pawn, but as long as black doesn't do that, they're able to hold. All right, so then the next game, Ding Li Ren reverted to playing e5, although he didn't play the Marshall, he played the Berlin.
I mean, that's not surprising to me. His Marshall took a beating at the candidates. I mean, he really got clobbered in it. Like, he lost his tough game to Wang Hao because he overpressed, but his Marshall, he barely got out of the opening against both Nepo and MVL. I mean, and he got completely crushed.
Yeah,
so it's not surprising to me that he's put that aside for all the Berlin and the Najdorf, which are both more I guess a little different.
Yeah, no, and I was told my mic volume is a little bit higher than yours, so I'm trying to turn it down a little bit so that I'm hopefully it's better now.
So Firouzja went for this variation with bishop takes c6 and castle that he had been doing quite a bit, and actually with very good results. He beat Wang Hao, he beat Jeffrey, he beat quite some guys with this variation, and but Ding came with this interesting move h6, and I think the point is that white's best development scheme after c3 is to play d4 and then swing the c1 bishop to g3, and h6 prevents him from doing that.
Yeah, so bishop g5, bishop h4, bishop g3, which I guess puts a lot of pressure on the e pawn. Yeah, so interesting. I guess Ding had prepared for this. d4.
Yeah, I mean, he must have. I mean, if he knows he's playing Firouzja, and Firouzja has played this over and over again, he chose to play the Berlin. I refuse to believe that he came up with h6 on accident, especially considering it stops the main plan that Firouzja had been playing previously with bishop g5 around to g3.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
Ding quickly got a very good position this game. I mean, he really showed a lot of class, I thought, and showed the kind of chess that makes him really, really strong, which he wasn't really able to show at the candidates, at least not yet.
Yeah. So here, after this f5 plan, he's got, I guess, squares and a bishop pair and just a very decent position. It got a little bit. I mean, of course, it was. Here he was just probably already close to close to winning. Somehow things got a little bit out of hand, but again, it's a quick game. So he allowed this structure to happen, which probably was fine. But at some point he did lose a pawn and had to hold, but the result was never really, I think.
Yeah, he held very easily. I think Dink probably wins this game if it was the first game of the match, but the way he played, like, it even felt like he got pretty convincingly outplayed in the later phase, but Firouzja was never even close to winning. Like, he got the absolute maximum he ever could have hoped for in this position, which was a rook endgame with one extra pawn all on the same side. That was going to be an easy draw.
So a match that sort of didn't go the way some of the odd makers were expecting, but that just goes to show.
Yeah, I mean, I thought these odd makers were insane to believe that for his 3-1 favorite. I thought it was going to be a very close match.
I think, like you said, it's the time control, is not that fast. So, it's one thing in 3-0 because you could see, when Ding Liren was playing online 3-0 in the banter blitz here, that he's not, as comfortable, of course, moving the mouse fast as, Alireza is, but I guess in this time control, it's not entirely.
Yeah, I mean, like and the time is different. Like, for example, I played in the Speed Chess Championship against Ding Liren actually, and he beat me in the first round, and I actually beat him in the 3-1 phase, which is, albeit somewhat slower than 3-0, and notably there's no flagging in stupid positions, but I did beat him in that phase. And in the 5-0 phase, 5-1 phase, he was much stronger, and he beat me. He didn't crush me, but he beat me by like 3 games or something. I mean, I think that, really fast games might not quite be right up Ding's alley, but like, it's not like 5 minutes. That's enough time for him. Like, he can play really, really good chess. I mean, I don't know. I wasn't at all surprised to see him win. I mean, I would have been surprised if like he clobbered Firouzja 4-0 without a fight. I mean, obviously, I don't think anybody would expect that, but it's not wildly surprising to me that he won. I mean, it wouldn't have been surprising to me if he loses either, but I thought he was a favorite coming into the match, and I certainly didn't think he was a 3-1 underdog. I don't know. Maybe I'm just not objective.
Fair enough.
That I believe in Ding more than most people do, but or that I think he's better than he is, but he's had a stronger impression on me than a lot of other top players.
Yeah, it's also like a small sample size, so we'll have to see how the rest of the event goes and whether he proves you wrong or right as things go along in the next couple of days. Do you have any, like, if you had a dark horse pick for like winning the tournament, who would it be? Like, of course, you said already that Magnus is a pretty big favorite in your opinion. Anybody like who you would make your second?
My second pick would be Ding, and I know a lot of people find that insane. I mean, they're like, oh, the format doesn't favor him. I mean, I've played with a lot of these top guys, and I just believe that Ding is the strongest. I mean, I've played, I think, every single guy in this field, and none of them have given me trouble the way Ding has. Maybe that's just a stylistic thing that he got into my head, but
no, fair.
I think I would call him the number 2.
Fair enough. My dark horse pick is MVL, but maybe it's because
you could possibly call that a dark horse pick. I mean,
well, not dark horse. I just mean like it's my fantasy pick because the odds of if he wins, you get so much more reward that I'm picking him. But I think
you've now picked, between the two of us, we've picked the exact 2 players in like human history who have beaten Magnus in a playoff before.
Right.
And, I think that's evidence in and of itself that these guys are worth it.
Yeah. No, that's true. And I think it's interesting that we're both picking these guys who, at least historically, have had a slightly more narrow repertoire, which I think is a little harder to exploit in a rapid game because they know their stuff so well that they can navigate things with their experience in those systems a little better.
But Ding is now, I mean, he didn't stick with his guns.
No, I know he played the Sicilian in one game and the Berlin, a totally different line than the Marshall in the second one. So that doesn't hold true so far. All right. So we went through these games. It took us a little bit more time. Of course, this is the first day, so I never know how things are going to go, but it took us a little longer than I thought. So I think we're gonna stick to just this for today. And but then tomorrow we have a couple of exciting things. Of course, it starts with the Invitational tournament. But then this is kind of a Sam day on Chess 24. Your course is going to be the deal of the day. Hopefully a lot of people buy it. I started going through it, and when I make my return to chess, I probably shouldn't be saying this to the millions watching us, but there's a decent chance I'll be playing the Semislav after going through your video. So because I do need some fresh or just some openings, not even fresh, because it's nothing is fresh after not having played for 10 years. But yeah, I mean, I highly recommend it. And so tomorrow we're going to do an opening little clinic with you, where I've already started receiving questions from some of our members, and I can supplement with my own questions.
They can ask me about any opening, not just Semislav, right?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think that the main theme.
That's fine. I'm going to do the Semislav questions first, but I'll answer all of them.
That's fine. We can do. Sam is opening it up to any opening. That sounds good too. And then you're going to play some banter blitz as well, where I think you're agreeing to play only with the black pieces. Is that right?
Yeah, I would much rather play the black pieces than play my repertoire. I'll play the black pieces every game, and I will request that people play d4 against me, but I'm not going to force them to.
Yeah. So what are you going to do if they play e4?
I'll play.
You'll play some chess.
D4.
All right. Well, Sam, I'm gonna thank you for joining me today. I mean, I think you're probably going to be back on some of the days upcoming on top of the opening and banter blitz tomorrow, and it was always a pleasure. Yeah. Always a pleasure to have you and explaining things to everybody here.
All right, good stuff. And yeah, sure. So I'll see you guys all tomorrow then.
All right. Thanks everybody, and thanks, Sam.
Good stuff.
It's time to take control of your journey towards chess mastery. Magnus Carlsen introduces Chessable, the definitive solution for studying chess. Move Trainer uses the science of spaced repetition to identify your strengths and eliminate your weaknesses. There's no need to set up a board, remember which page you're on, or keep track of all the moves you miss. Move Trainer empowers you to go from the opening to the endgame with confidence. It's a seamless, effective, and fun way to study chess. Choose from one of the largest online chess libraries in the world, with hundreds of titles ranging from classic books through to our exclusive Chessable courses, including over 100 free courses. Get expert insights from International Master John Bartholomew, Grandmaster Sam Shankland, International Master Christoph Sulecki, Grandmaster Simon Williams, World Champion Magnus Carlsen, and hundreds of other instructors. Get started now and join our growing community of over 100,000 chess enthusiasts at Chessable.com. Chessable, take control of your journey towards chess mastery.